A new book reveals what was really happening behind the scenes during the 2024 election, including how former President Obama was working against Kamala Harris. One excerpt explains, quote, "In private conversations, Obama flat out told allies Harris would lose to Trump. He did not think she should be the candidate," said one confidant. He liked the idea of Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer at the top of the ticket and Maryland Governor Wes Moore at the bottom. He didn't want a coronation of Harris. The co-author of that book, Fight Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House, Jonathan Allen, joins us now. Hey, Jonathan, it's so good to see you. Wish we were doing this in person, but congratulations on the book. It's a fun read. It's like eating popcorn with lots of salt and butter. You can't just eat a couple of kernels.
Thanks for having me on, Charlie. It's good to see you too. I hope folks that watch this show appreciate just how dogged a reporter you were as a print reporter for many years before you came to TV. I've known you, I think, about 20 years.
It has been a long time. You know, plying the halls of Congress. So I was particularly struck by, for a lot of people, during the 2024 campaign, there's a lot of speculation about what people thought was going on behind the scenes. It's pretty dramatic because your reporting bears out that they really were lost behind the scenes. At one point, you actually had the Biden campaign hiding internal polling from their own campaign in different states.
Yeah, that's a great find that you've got there, Charlie, that not anybody's really talked about since this book came out, but absolutely true. The state directors in these big, important swing states for months were not seeing internal polling before, even before the Biden-Trump debate. The campaign leadership was not telling their people on the ground where the race stood. And the reason for that, the biggest reason for that was that Trump was already beating Biden. And the leadership of the Democratic Party, the most senior Democrats, were aware of that. It's one of the reasons that they wanted Biden to debate Trump early. They wanted so badly to shake up a race that Trump was already going to win, looking for a way to shake it up. And they did shake it up, just not in the way they hoped.
Yeah. And I was also struck that, we're so used to, so many people sort of holding up Obama as being sort of this political, almost deity. But it's interesting how, he kind of missed on a lot of this. I would argue he kind of missed when he picked Joe Biden to be his vice president because it's not much of a legacy for him. But his efforts behind the scenes, not only was he trying to undermine Kamala Harris, but ultimately he ended up failing.
That's right. And more than failing. So he tried his best to have some sort of mini primary or open convention. And we've got a scene in the book where even after Joe Biden has decided that he's going to get out, has decided that he's going to endorse Kamala Harris, Obama has phone calls set up. He has one set up with Jim Clyburn, the congressman from South Carolina, to talk about, well, at least Clyburn expected Obama to talk to him about an open convention, but Clyburn pushed out his own endorsement so that by the time he talked to Obama, he could say, look, we just have to get behind Kamala Harris here. I've already endorsed her. I don't really need to hear anything about your open primary idea. But not only did it fail, but I think it backfired on Obama. I think it really strained his relationships and it exposed his diminished influence within the Democratic Party.
Yeah, interesting. I was also struck, during the debate, which was obviously a catastrophe for Joe Biden when Joe Biden was still in the race. You had people like Chris Coons, who is, Joe Biden's, #1 emissary in the Senate, in the book, kind of surprised or pretending to be surprised, I don't know which it is, that Joe Biden was so bad off. And you would think, this is a fellow Delawarean, you would think if somebody knew that Biden's cheese had slid off his cracker, Chris Coons would have known, but there he is professing that he didn't have any idea how bad off Joe Biden was. I was kind of surprised by all that.
Yeah, what a great metaphor, the cheese sliding off the cracker, Charlie. Yeah, I think, look, Coons definitely spent time with Biden in a way that a lot of senators and members of the House did not. But it's also true that the White House staff and the Biden family kept even his close allies at a little bit of a distance. There was a really tight cocoon around Biden. But Coons also knew that he wasn't going to be the first person and that he would be the last person to abandon Biden. So he's kind of playing a role on debate night. He's getting all these texts from senators who are like, well, they're basically saying, what the heck?
Yeah.
Like, why haven't you told us about this? And Coons's, first thought is, I have to be the cleanup crew for Joe Biden. No matter what I think of that debate, I have to be the cleanup crew for him. So, Coons starts pushing back on all his fellow senators, says, chill out. It's just a bad moment. It wasn't that bad. And he watched the debate. He's got two eyes like the rest of us. That wasn't just a debacle politically for Joe Biden. It was a scary moment for the country. Right. This is the leader of the free world. Yeah. Guy with his finger on the nuclear button, bereft of coherent thought.
And one of the values of a book like yours is the fact that it does pulls back the curtain, because I want to play a quick piece of tape showing just how much at that time, in real time, Democrats were denying all of these concerns.
Any aide who engages with him or reporters, we can see this. The gears of his mind are working.
And Biden is actually in good shape.
Joe Biden has 50 years of experience in foreign policy.
No doubt.
And he is strong. He is strong behind doors, and he's strong when he's in front of the camera.
He's clearly up to the job. He's doing it every day. He's doing it successfully.
His mental acuity is great. It's fine. It's as good as it's been over the years.
He is as sharp as ever.
It's kind of jarring, especially when you read your book now.
Well, especially with Schumer there saying that his mental acuity is as good as it's been for years. You wonder what those previous years were.
Yeah, so which leads me actually to another part of the book that I thought was really interesting. There's a lot of jockeying between Pelosi, even though Pelosi has sort of moved into the background of leadership. Schumer is still very much in leadership. There's a lot of jockeying, and I'm going to read a quick quote from the book. When Democratic insiders put out a contract on Biden's political life, Pelosi executed the hit. Schumer did not want Pelosi to get all the credit for pushing Biden out to the side as soon as it looked like Harris had a chance to win. He started telling reporters in August that he played a crucial role behind the scenes in urging Biden to get out. So going forward, you've got this obviously an ugly thing from the past, but also this rivalry now between former leadership Pelosi and current leadership Schumer. How's that bridge gonna heal?
The fascinating thing about that part that you just pulled out there, Charlie, is Nancy Pelosi's fingerprints are absolutely at the crime scene, if you will, of pushing Biden out. And I think she was representing what Democrats thought was right, and that a lot of other people thought was right, that Biden, was not capable of running. I think there were a lot of Americans who thought he was not capable of continuing in office as well. But Pelosi didn't want that to be the outcome. It hurt her to be the person wielding the knife, whereas Schumer is taking a victory lap for his role. And there's a real conflict in just sort of the way they approach these things. And I doubt there are very many of your viewers that think Chuck Schumer is a more effective politician or strategist than Nancy Pelosi is. And it's been sort of funny to watch him trying to take credit for something that didn't work, and that, turned him against some of his old friends.
And Pelosi, of course, is still occasionally taking those subtle velvet hammer shots at Schumer, which always make me laugh. Jonathan Allen, fine book that you and Amy put together, and congratulations. It's obviously going all over, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks so much, Charlie. Good to see you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.